Welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Gordon. We are back with another video. Are we in a bear market? This is what I'm diving into. Let's look at the charts. Let's look at the data. What is happening in the markets and what is the outlook for the remainder of 2025? As always, if you enjoy the content, please make sure to smash that thumbs up button below. Hit subscribe, hit that bell notification icon. You've got a free copy of The Rise of Bitcoin waiting for you in the description of this video. Grab that now and let's get into it. Okay, so price action on Bitcoin sees us right around this $101,000, $102,000 area at this moment in time. And this critical level of support right at 100,800 is holding pretty solid here over the past few days. We can see that we came down to this level multiple times over the past few months in May, June, and again, very end of June, respectively. We even wicked down close to this on the October 10th flash crash, but this level has been holding a support here for the past few days on the daily chart. Now, we have lost the 200-day simple moving average here since the 3rd of November, but the key area I'm watching here, if we zoom out to a weekly chart and bring up the 50-week EMA, this is the core level of support that I'm keeping an eye on. Getting a bounce off of this 50-week EMA, which lines up very, very nicely with that $100,800 area of support, is the critical level I'm looking for us to hold. Again, zooming out and looking at this big picture, this 50-week exponential moving average has been the level that has held multiple times throughout the course of this bull market. We can see even going back to Q4 of 2023, when we got that initial run up, we got that bounce off of the 50-week EMA to move higher. Once again, in September of 2024, we came right down to retest it before getting a much larger bounce to the upside. And again, this drawdown into Q1 of 2025, that first week of April, we got a really nice bounce here off of the 50-week. So in the past week, we have come right down to test that level. And yes, at the time of recording, I do have another day until we get the close of this weekly candle, but getting a bounce here off of this level is critical for us to maintain a bullish structure for the overall market. Is it possible to wick below it? Yeah, of course it is. We already wick below it, and you can see previous times throughout the course of this bull cycle, we've come much lower than that 50-week before getting a bounce higher. So that's not detrimental, but getting a close above it here with the body of this candle to keep moving higher is going to be what I'm watching. When we're looking at this chart, I'm going to jump over to Bitcoin dominance next to look at what's happening here, because interestingly, if I remove some of these indicators very quickly, we are seeing some interesting price action on the Bitcoin dominance chart as well. Again, zooming out and looking at the bigger picture, weekly, you've got a very long trend line here going all the way back to October of 2022 that remained intact for the course of almost 3 years here before we got this breakdown of Bitcoin dominance below this trend line. And what you're looking at here is a retest currently in progress. With the October 10th flash crash, we shot right up above it here, came shooting back down. But again, in the past few days, if we go back into a daily, we have been trying to reach and pressure back up above that long-term trend line, and we're getting rejected here on multiple occasions. So are we going to get rejected and see Bitcoin dominance move to the downside? Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very possible. This is why I have this area marked in on the chart here. If I zoom out once again, this zone, this profit-taking zone that I'm thinking about for later in the cycle when we get a larger breakdown in Bitcoin dominance, I think we eventually see it breaking down to 50% and below, moving towards that kind of 50 to 42% area. That is going to be a very good profit-taking zone, because historically we have seen Bitcoin dominance come down into this 35% and 38% zone in the past 2 cycles. Now, I don't think we get all the way down to 38% this time. And so taking profits from 50% downwards could be a wise move. And the other thing I'm looking at here that gives some confluence with what I'm seeing on the chart is a head and shoulders pattern forming here on the weekly, one shoulder here, one head, and then the other shoulder forming. Interestingly, this shoulder forming, this right-hand shoulder, getting rejected from both the trend line and the 200-day would actually be a really nice move here to see that second shoulder really form and play out here. Head and shoulder pattern, meaning that we should see a breakdown in Bitcoin dominance if that fully forms. And again, the formation of that right shoulder lining up with rejection from long-term trend line and rejection from the 200-day here, which could play out perfectly over the next few weeks. So again, we need a little bit more patience to see what's going to happen here because we do have some other things to contend with. Speaking of other things to contend with, we are seeing the US Treasury General Account continue to accumulate more capital thanks to the government shutdown in the United States. Of course, what this means is money is coming in, being collected by the US government, but because the government shutdown continues, it is not being spent. This is acting like a sponge, taking liquidity out of markets. And I'm not saying this is the sole reason for price action over the past couple of weeks, where we've seen Bitcoin move from 110,000 all the way down to 101. But I do think it's a contributing factor. And when we get the reopening of the US government, I do think that will play a role in the Treasury General Account being drawn down, more liquidity being introduced into the markets, and price action hopefully moving to the upside as a result for risk on assets, just like Bitcoin. The other decoupling that we're seeing is Bitcoin not following global M2 as closely as it had been here over the past number of months. If I zoom back into a daily chart, just make it a little bit bigger on the screen here, we had typically seen really nice correlation between global M2 and the price of Bitcoin here over the past few years with an 85-day offset. And we're seeing that decoupling at the moment, at least, breaking down a little bit. If I make it a little bit more clear on the chart, you can see how it has followed global M2 with that 85-day offset, decoupling here over the past few months. And I do think there's room for Bitcoin to catch up with this here as we move into the end of Q4 2025 and possibly even into Q1 and Q2 of 2026. I don't think we're going to be seeing the slowdown of fiat currency debasement. And in fact, 2026 is lining up to be potentially an even bigger year for money printing and quantitative easing. Okay. Hopefully, this is all making sense, guys. These are just some of the indicators that I'm watching. The last thing I will bring up here is the ETH to Bitcoin chart, because we know ETH is typically the standard bearer and the leader when it comes to altcoin season. Ethereum is getting some support here right around the 200-day simple moving average. On the weekly, I would prefer to see us get back up above this long-term trend line that we've been retesting, because right now it's looking like we're going to struggle to close back above it here in 24 hours or just a little bit over 24 hours from now. But bringing up the ETH BTC chart, we do need to see Bitcoin break down a little bit further versus Ethereum, or Ethereum breaking out against Bitcoin. We can see we've come all the way up here. We got a bounce at the 0.02 area. Coming up to retest this long-term trend line meant that we got rejected here in the past few weeks. We need to see Ethereum clearing above this level and moving higher to really signal a true altcoin season. And finally, the last chart I will bring up, others versus Bitcoin on the weekly here, you can see that we're right down at the very, very bottom of this long-term trend line that has acted as support during the course of the past two cycles. Again, we've gotten a bounce from this area aggressively to the upside in 2017 and in 2021 respectively. So technically speaking, this has historically been the best time to purchase alts versus Bitcoin. Are we going to get a move to the upside? I think we will. I'm just not sure if it's going to be happening next week or in a few months from now. But typically, this has been a good zone to accumulate based on historical price action. Remember, nothing in this video is financial advice, guys. Always do your own research and look at the fundamentals on the charts. US government shutdown, just to touch on that final point again, it is looking like highest probability that we're not going to see a reconvening and reopening of that government until after November 16th. So that is the odds that we're looking at on Polymarket right now. I think most of us are looking for that to reopen so that we can get this Treasury General Account drawdown, more liquidity coming into markets, seeing things move and pivot into risk on assets. We had a little bit of a pullback in the S&P here over the past week or so as well. Nothing crazy, but definitely some drawdowns here with Nvidia and some of the AI tech stocks pulling down in the past week. But I do think we could find some support here around that 65.50 area getting a bounce, consolidating, and moving higher over the coming months. So that is it, guys. That is what I'm seeing in the markets here right now. I still think structurally that bull market is intact for Bitcoin with that 50-week EMA. And if we can get a bounce off of it, if I zoom back out to the weekly here, that is the area I'm looking at. Keeping support on that 50-week, moving higher, consolidating if necessary before moving higher, and a strong 2026. That is it for today's video, guys. As always, if you got any value out of this market overview, please take 3 seconds right now. Under my finger, there is a thumbs up button. Make sure to smash that thumbs up button before you leave the video. Hit subscribe, hit that bell notification icon. You have a free copy of The Rise of Bitcoin waiting for you in the description. Make sure to grab that, and I'll catch you in the next one.